do it?
Yeah, I guess so.
I'm proud of you, Gary.
I wouldn't be. All right.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Start Your Day the 501 Way.
Morning.
I'm Nick. Here with me is the beautiful Garrett.
Generous day.
Today we're going to be discussing overtraining syndrome. What does it mean? What does it do? How do you prevent it? How do you cure it once you have it? All of these things. So Garrett, what's overtraining syndrome?
Working way too hard for way too long. Pretty close. Constant soreness, fatigue.
That's not. Those are signs of it. That's not what it is.
Oh.
We need you to have some back and forth. So there's different levels of overtraining syndrome, as defined by the American Medical Association. The first is overreaching, which is sort of the beginning stages of it, right? And then that develops into overtraining syndrome, which is bad.
Can be really bad.
Can be very bad. Some of the signs and symptoms of overtraining are like constant soreness that doesn't match up with the intensity of your workout. So if you did like a easier workout, but you're still super sore, that's a pretty hallmark sign. Constant fatigue, decreased mood, irritability, depression, things like that can be a sign.
Yeah.
Trouble sleeping.
Minor little injuries coming up, like little things.
Appetite disruptions, things like not having your appetite like you should. There's in females, there's a lot of potential menstrual, what's the word? Disruptions, possible cessation.
Too early, too late.
Not at all.
Not at all.
Yeah,
And
that's when that's what. Yeah, if it stops and you go into amenorrhea, then it gets really, really bad. But that's not what we're talking about today.
It's a different video. Probably not.
I mean, we could do a video on eating disorders and how they progress into amenorrhea, but that's a whole set of issues and topics.
We might need 2 videos.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been working out a long time, and there's definitely points in my life I've gone through about everything you just said, minus the menstrual problems. But I don't know, most of the time, Sean, and you always hear Sean and I bitching about like, oh, we're always sore, but it generally correlates with what we're doing. Like, as much as I complain about hurting, waking up and can't walk, all those fun things, it does most of the time correlate with what I did the previous day, maybe 2 days before. And most of the stuff we're talking about is pretty excessive. Like you said, if your workout you thought was light, you still wake up the next day like, oh, I'm wrecked for no reason. I don't know, keep an eye on those things.
And the big thing with you that you're not too terribly worried about it is because you keep progressing.
Yes.
You keep going heavier in weight, you keep getting stronger, and that's what you should be doing.
You go into another cycle and you're like, shit, I'm in the same spot for 3, 4, 5 weeks, 6 weeks at a time.
Or going backwards.
Yeah.
That's when you're really like, oh, okay, I need to step back.
You need to take a break, reevaluate.
Yeah. And it's not even just like soreness.
Yeah.
It's like fatigue. Like your legs feel really heavy. You know, just getting out of bed, just that whole body tiredness and fatigue is just like, ugh.
Yeah.
So it's less about soreness.
This is stuff that I've had for sure, and I didn't realize that I had. I mean, years ago, again, before I was the trainer, hopefully.
Yeah.
Even then, so you live the life, you think it's part of it, then all of a sudden your weights are going down. You're losing weight. In my particular case, I was losing weight for no reason, or thought was no reason. I remember the appetite thing was crazy. I took probably 3 weeks off of just training flat, and just I don't know, the group we were working out with, we were working out 6 days a week, like constantly for probably a year. And at one point I lost 15 pounds for like pretty much no reason. So, stepped back, probably was the right decision, but we didn't know really what was going on. But
Yeah. Most people that, I don't know about most people, I haven't done the research, but a good number of people who exercise regularly will experience usually just overreaching. It usually doesn't develop into overtraining. But you'll usually discover or go through some level of this, and it's really like you don't really know what it is at the time, but then you sort of look back and you're like, oh, I was super overtraining.
Yeah.
I needed to relax.
absolutely.
We'll
talk about in a minute. We'll talk about some ways to like acknowledge those things, self-analyze, and admit to yourself that maybe taking a break, changing your workout style, something like to help yourself out to, I don't know, not lead down to some of the more severe things we're going to talk about.
Yeah.
So listen, remember, I can't remember his name now. Sales manager?
Oh, Travis?
No, big dude. He had rhabdo.
The guy at CAC or 24?
No, 24. He had rhabdo. He's talking about having rhabdo.
Joe?
No, I can't remember his name. He worked at CAC for a minute. Were you there at that time? Wow, we'll talk about it
I
later.
don't think so. But anyways,
Rhabdo.
apparently you can go into rhabdo, which is
Pretty extreme.
rhabdomyolysis. If it happens, it's essentially like breakdown of muscle tissue, and it can be potentially fatal. It'll take you out for about a year for your kidneys to start working right again and everything like that, depending on the level of it is.
It's 6 months before you felt like he was good again.
Yeah.
Right.
I think the general recommendation of rest is between 6 months and a year.
Jeez.
And I mean, it can happen fairly quickly if you're not paying attention and doing the right things. It's very prevalent and common in CrossFit.
A little bit in bodybuilding, but CrossFit is.
Yeah, the style of bodybuilding workouts don't lead to rhabdo as much,
Yeah,
but it does happen, obviously.
You have a better chance of it not happening just with the splits of workouts.
Yeah, and they're slower workouts,
Yeah.
things like that. Whereas CrossFit, that style of workout is like
Go, go, go.
the way that you develop rhabdo.
You just go.
So, yeah.
The different. Everything has its issues. Anybody can have
Right.
it happen, but you find it more common in those things.
Yeah, because it's those higher intensity impact.
Impact, duration.
Yeah,
density,
exactly.
Yeah.
That really leads to that rhabdo.
Yeah. Signs of rhabdo. Brown pea.
That's the number one. That's the big one.
Yeah. You see that. Be concerned.
I mean, if your pee is ever brown, even if you're not suspecting rhabdomyolysis, that is, yeah.
Long night out. Who knows?
It's technically referred to as hematuria, and that just means there's blood in your pee. And if you're a guy, it's always bad. You should never have blood in your pee as a man. As women, it happens sometimes. But overall, it's bad.
Get yourself checked out. Goes back, same thing. Other signs for that is still the heavy limbs, like just weight, like extra weighted body. I don't know how to describe that.
Yeah, it just feels like you're walking around in a weighted vest almost.
There you go.
Yeah, just really, really bad fatigue.
Yeah.
And then like kidney pain, actually.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't know about that one. Jeez.
Kidneys are not doing so well.
Yeah, I mean, if you say that, yeah.
And yeah, that pretty much what happens in a nutshell is it's too much stress on your body and it starts breaking down the proteins in your muscles and things like that.
Those are toxic.
And then they get processed through the kidneys, which is just way too much for the kidneys to handle. There's a lot of other stuff that goes into it, causes issues. That's the long and short of things. It's yeah, they can kill you.
Yeah.
100% it can.
So on a more positive note, things that won't kill you but they're really painful. Stress fractures.
Stress fractures are a very, very common. I was gonna say, I guess, outcome of overtraining. One of the most common forms of overtraining, symptoms or syndromes of overtraining, is what's referred to as medial tibial stress syndrome, aka shin splints.
Oh, there you go.
And that's very, very common. Almost everybody who's ever worked out, exercise at all, has had shin splints at some point. And a big issue with shin splints is they can develop to stress fractures. So that's one example of overtraining leading directly to a stress fracture. Another one, just overtraining in general increases your chance for stress fractures, particularly in the feet. Things like March fractures specifically are very, very common. Just that pounding, repetitive stress.
I just remember that was like a track season. It was just constant. It was absolutely constant.
Yeah. Those are the big ones.
Stretching and all that stuff, still minimal help.
Yeah. It's less like lifting that will do that. More running, sprinting, that constant pounding is what does it typically. You can get stress fractures in other parts of your body. For example, it's really, really uncommon in general populations. It's fairly common in gymnastics, and some bodybuilding is basically forearm splints, which is just shin splints in your forearms. Really common in gymnastics, from having to hold yourself up and all the walking and things like that.
That makes sense.
You'll see it sometimes in people that do too many curls, doing this, and their wrists can't keep up, and it starts hurting really bad right here.
That one, they would actually present in the forearm, not like in an elbow or something.
Yeah, because typically what it is because your wrist flexors and extensors are so long and small, they develop a lot slower than your biceps or triceps and things like that.
So they're going to be lagging behind.
Yeah, so it takes
hit.
a lot longer for them to
keep up.
Yeah, to get as strong as your biceps and all of that. So you'll be able to, your biceps can do the curls, but your wrist can't, and so it stresses it and it puts the stress on your forearms. It can lead to forearm splints.
There you go.
Like I said, fairly uncommon in general population. The big telltale sign of stress fractures is if you have a big area of pain, say your whole shin splitting, shin's hurting, and then it just gets smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller, and then it's just right here.
Yep.
A lot of people think, oh, the pain is getting smaller. That's a good thing. No.
That's high school right there.
Yeah.
We get down to where I remember it was just like whatever. It was like right here. Like you touch it, it hurts. Like you get your track shoes on, you're just like, oh my god. You get running a little bit, it gets better. You think you're fine. Next morning you can't walk.
Yeah, and so exactly. Once it gets to that smaller point, it's really, really common to develop a stress fracture in the tibia. And just in the feet is super common to get a stress fracture. There are some other examples of stress fractures. A very common one in kids is a form of a stress fracture, Osgood-Schlatter's disease, where your patella comes up where it attaches right here. The name of it's escaping me at the moment. But right here, and it pulls up and it has a big prominent notch there. And there's also, just because it's fun to say, it's super uncommon, but it's called Sinding-Larsen-Johansson. And that's when it happens at the other end, at the patella, as opposed to the insertion there.
A lot of that's, Osgood-Schlatter's is due to like a big growth spurt, right? Like, just it extends that and starts to pull really bad.
It's very common from growth spurts and like exercise running during the growth spurt.
Yeah. Because
it just pulls on that little insertion right there, and the bone builds in underneath it, and so it gets a big prominent point.
Yeah.
The thing about Osgood-Schlatter's is it sucks, and there's not a lot you can do about it.
I trained a gal with Osgood. I think she was 14 or 15 and 6'2".
Well,
They said 5'9" to 6'2" in like a year.
That's tough.
She was hurt. She was hurt. All the little things in life, right?
Yeah. It's a type of stress fracture. It's like a stress avulsion fracture essentially.
Yep.
But and then
what's another major sign of overtraining?
What do you mean?
What's the next one?
Yeah, so possible, like, nagging injuries. Where, you know, it just seems like you're always injured. Minor injury after minor injury after minor injury. And you're just like, oh my gosh, I'm always pulling my hamstrings. I'm always pulling my back. I'm always pulling, just things like that. And if it just keeps compounding, and it's just always happening, that means you're probably doing too much and you need to kick it back.
Those little injuries will lead up to potentially something major. I mean,
yeah.
My hamstrings always pull. This always aches. I don't know. You do a little too much, hamstring tear, quad, whatever. Like, just might.
Yeah, it just because essentially, I mean,
it's telling you something.
Yeah, exactly. When you're working out, you're trying to put little tiny tears in the muscle, which is good. That's what you do, and then it builds back stronger. And then once you're doing too much, and then those little tears just keep tearing, and then they just keep going, and then, like you said, it doesn't.
Yeah.
And that's when issues occur.
Yeah.
Anything else?
No, some stuff, shit's gonna happen. I mean, sometimes shit just happens. You don't have
obviously.
any signs. Personally, I tore a pec a few years ago, a long time ago now.
Dude, that was like 10 years ago. Not that long, but
5-6 years ago. I don't remember having any issue. I felt great. We're going, and then just.
I mean, yes, it happens sometimes.
So sometimes I don't know. I look back, I was just pissed about it anyway. So maybe there was signs. I don't know, but for one day doing it, and then all of a sudden things snapping. Some shit just happens. So
it does. Some things just happen. I mean,
it's unfortunate, but working out, there's always some risk. Hopefully, you're playing the low end of those risks. But
I mean, to be fair, I think that weightlifting actually has the lowest incidence of risk in any sport.
Most people get injured outside of the gym doing random shit.
Yeah, right? It's far more common the most common injury in a weight room by far is dropping shit on your foot.
Because wearing shoes will protect that.
It does a little bit. It won't prevent the full injury, but it'll make it less bad. Because then it goes everywhere, spreads it out a little bit, as opposed to just here. Yeah. And then your blood doesn't get everywhere.
That went to a dark place. Went to a real dark place.
No, that's just a fact. It keeps the blood here, as opposed to just spraying blood all over the place.
Real dark, sir.
Just put your goddamn shoes on in public.
No.
That's gross.
No. Bare feet. That's where it's at.
That's just gross. You can do that in your nasty floor here.
Yep, all the time.
But don't do it in public. That's gross.
Those are the big ones. Signs of overtraining. How to kind of watch yourself. Different ways of helping yourself not overtrain.
Yeah.
Nutrition. Proper rest, like sleep, breaks in between workouts. Always water. Water and nutrition are big things. You're undernourished. Kind of asking for problems of one way or another. It's just not. You're not fueled for what you want to do, and then you're going to accelerate possibly something that happens.
You need to get enough carbs and proteins post-workout to repair the damage before you're going back in.
Yep. It's kind of the basics there, but it's so often, even for myself, I want to work out again, you skip a rest day because you want to get back to it, or you're too busy, you skip a meal after the gym, or something. It happens to everybody. Yeah,
those little things, and then the problem is when they happen all the time.
Yeah, if you're doing it too often, once in a while, big whoop, whatever. But same thing, if you're not sleeping right, 3, 4, 5 hours of sleep isn't enough if you're working out hard.
Yeah, if you're working out hard, if you're training every day, you should be pushing 9.
Yeah.
Even 8's not going to be enough.
No.
You really got to get that extra rest.
Yeah, you help your own body. We all got shit to do. I know that, but you want to play hard, rest hard. Yeah.
Attaboy.
I do love a good nap. Yeah. You don't know. You don't nap.
That's true. I lay down though, and it feels good.
It's good enough. Sometimes you don't actually nap. Other ways too, there's different things out there. We run one for our trainees, that a wellness survey. How are you doing that week? How was things going? How's your sleep? All that stuff. We run through everything, and it helps everybody be a little more aware of this stuff, everything we just talked about. So our ways of helping you prevent that stuff through external sources, but just be honest with yourself. How are you feeling? God, I felt like crap all week, and I've barely done a couple workouts. Like, if there's other stressors going on, but those could be contributing, really just be honest with yourself. If you have half the things that we just said, be a little worried, maybe.
Yeah, those wellness surveys are actually huge. There's a ton of research behind them, and subjective wellness surveys actually are an unbelievable predictor of overtraining, overreaching, syndromes like that. So, I mean, what we do for our people we work with is every week we just send them out a survey. It takes about 2 minutes to do, maybe. If you're being really thorough and well thought out, it takes about 2 minutes. Usually it'll take less than a minute. And it'll just say, rate your soreness, fatigue, difficulty of the workouts, and there's one or two other things in there. Oh, quality of sleep, stress, mood, things like that. And then we just take a look at it, and as long as everything's good, we keep going. If things are getting a little on the high end, we'll dial back the workouts a little bit. Yeah, it's hugely beneficial.
Yeah, because you should be, again, that's one way for us to help you. I mean, you can have something on your own. You could pull up a survey on your own. There's tons out there.
If you need a wellness survey and you don't know how to do it, you drop a message. I'll send you the one that I use. You can send it to you can make it up yourself. It's super easy to do. I'll send you to Google. So with our current group, it's all through our app, just so we can do it through there. When I was at the school working, I had the whole team do it on Google Forms, which puts it right into a spreadsheet, and you can just format it, and it makes it so easy. So if you need that, reach out. Yeah, just drop a comment, and I'll send it to you. It's just so easy.
It's a quick check-in, guys.
Yeah.
Be honest with yourself. Sometimes you can't be as honest with yourself as maybe someone else looking in on you, but be careful. It's all fun and games until it's not.
Yep.
So, let's see if we have any questions.
That sounds like a plan, Steve.
Right, since we're solo today.
Yeah. Thanks, Sean.
Thanks, Sean. Oh dang. When is a good sign that I should change my routine?
When is a good sign that I should change my routine? That depends on a lot of things. So, develop these signs and symptoms, these issues come up, take about 2 weeks off. Completely. Just rest, go, and then start slow, go back into it. And if it happens again, then something's wrong with your routine, your plan, your program, and you need to change it. If it happens once, it might just be you're going too hard, you went too fast, things like that. Perhaps your meals or your sleep wasn't in the correct place.
Life stress.
Yeah, exactly. Outside stresses can be huge. And so, take a break, and then if it happens again, then you're really at the point where you're going, okay, I'm doing something wrong, let me get some help. And then at that point, you'll change it up.
There you go. I've had shin splints. What does that say? I've had shin splints for a really long time. What are some easy ways to help with my shin splints?
Okay, good question. So, the easiest things to do, the first steps, look at your shoes. Make sure that your shoes are broken in but not worn down.
Fine line.
Yeah, exactly. It's like brand new shoes are a very common cause of shin splints, but then when the shoes are too old and they start breaking down, then it's also a common sign of shin splints.
Too much rigidity, not enough.
Yep.
Okay.
And then the rigidity, pliability thing, that's more individual. It depends on your feet. But in terms of other things that you can do, ice, specifically taking like ice cups and then rubbing it up and down really hard, so like an ice massage. Stretching out your calves and your shins, so sort of one of these stretches. Could you see that on the camera?
We'll do that again.
One of these can be really good for it. And then foam rolling in your calf and your shin, and then as well as on your feet can really help. And then getting some compression sleeves for your shins, for your legs can also help. That's less of a cure and more of a, it'll make you feel better, but you can do that while you're going.
Band-Aid.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Are certain people more prone to overtraining?
Yeah, 100%.
Is that more like type of workout type things?
So, I mean, obviously, as with everything, everybody's different. Some people will just be more prone to constant injuries. There's a syndrome that is defined in the American Medical Association. I forget what it's called, but it's basically like the constantly injured athlete. And there's a bunch of personality traits that go into it that can potentially cause it. But yes, every individual is different, and some are more susceptible, just genetically more or less susceptible to injury, overtraining, things like that. It happens. And then also, like we said earlier a bit, the style of workout can also very, very have a huge impact on your chances of overtraining. Things like we said, the CrossFit that have that constant high impact are a lot higher chances of overtraining. Whereas, believe it or not, things like bodybuilding and strongman and things like that have a lower chance just because they're slower things. That doesn't mean it can't happen. It absolutely 100% can. But as long as your split is right, it won't happen as much because it's slower and it's not as high impact.
Cool.
Any other questions?
No, I think that's it. Drea says hi.
Hi.
No, I think we're good. Thank you guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you everyone for starting your day the 501 way. We'll see you in 2 weeks.